Hi, everyone. It's 2 o'clock, so we'll get started on our next presentation. Thank you so much for joining in on our second day of our October Quarantine Virtual Insights Conference. My name is Erica, and I'm a Senior Project Manager at Accelerant. I'll be introducing our next speaker. But first, of course, our COVID conference ground rules. Just remember, we're at the mercy of our technology here, so if we do run into any technical difficulties, stick with us and we'll get it back up and running as soon as we can. Be respectful to each other in the comments in the chat and to our presenters. And please take this time to network and interact with each other. You can connect using the QVIC 2020 hashtag on LinkedIn and Twitter. And also please leave any questions you have for the presenter in the chat or the questions box. We will have time for that at the end. And we'd love to get some of your questions answered for you. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Brie Craig. She is the Senior Manager of Consumer Insights at NASCAR, and she's going to be talking to us about staying the course in an unprecedented year. So definitely some relevant content there. Hi, Brie. Thank you so much for joining us. I will stop sharing my screen and let you take it over.
Perfect. And I will just share my screen really quickly. All right, how's that look? Everything good?
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. All right, well, hi everyone. Thanks so much for having me, and thank you, Erica, for that lovely introduction. As Erica said, my name is Brie Craig. I work here at NASCAR. I am Senior Manager of Consumer Insights, and I have had the pleasure of working with NASCAR for 3 seasons now. Obviously, this kind of third season has looked completely different than my previous 2. And so I'm really excited to just kind of share with you guys how the internal research team here at NASCAR has really handled all of the, kind of twists and turns this year has thrown at us. So without further ado, I'm going to start off with a video that the NASCAR production team put together, which I feel like does a wonderful job of kind of summing up what happened this year.
For 70 years one way, we're completely changing that business. Really excited about what this is going to mean for our sport. NASCAR unique really is our fan base. Brands and services that are part of our sport.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. waves the green flag. The 62nd Daytona 500 is underway.
Here's the big one.
For the checker right here, you win. Good job, man. And Trophy's gonna take the victory. It's a photo finish.
We are committed to our future, and we're looking forward to seeing what lies ahead for all of us.
America seemed to wake up to the far-reaching threat of the coronavirus.
COVID-19, an unprecedented night in sports.
3 of the 4 major sports leagues decided to suspend their seasons.
MLB opening day has now been pushed, and then NASCAR postponing all races through May 3rd.
Now, a network television first. A NASCAR All-Star race from the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway, delivered by iRacing. Here they come off the corner for the final time. They all but come together, and the winner is Hamlin.
Wow, what a race. What a finish. Yeah, those fans should be cheering. They saw a heck of a race.
That is incredible.
Mike, that was exciting.
After 7 agonizing weeks, NASCAR is back.
Well, that noise right there we've been waiting for.
We're racing today. You believe it? Finally.
Sports are back.
NASCAR's back, baby!
The moment has arrived where drivers get to strap in, fire up those engines, and get back to what they do best.
Green.
Side by side, racing back to the line.
Hell yeah, boys! Thank you guys. Awesome job. Fans here in the stands. It's good to see you again.
Wow. Didn't see that coming.
I did not see that coming.
I don't even know what to say, man. Never give up.
I want to thank everybody out there that's kept things going while we've been trying to stay home, stay safe.
Really proud of you. Thank you, everybody.
All of NASCAR's drivers have rallied around Bubba Wallace. No one is white, black, brown, or yellow. They are all racers.
This is one of the most powerful, memorable races and events I've ever experienced.
Our sport must do better. Our country must do better. The time is now to listen.
Michael Jordan announced he's starting a new NASCAR Cup Series team. Bubba Wallace will be the driver.
Just have a deep breath. Get your mind right. Let's go to work. Green, green, green. Rolling, rolling, rolling. We ask our drivers, our competitors, and all our fans to join us in this mission.
Whew, all right. I know I'm biased, but like that gives me chills. So everyone, that is your quick, I guess, 3-minute introduction into the world of NASCAR. If you previously don't have any experience, that gets you fairly caught up to speed. Basically, 2020 was set to be a historic year from the get-go, just in terms of NASCAR changing leadership, acquiring some tracks, expanding our esports program, and introducing gambling. So the research team had our work cut out for us, you know, before 2020 even really happened. But obviously, you know, we had planned and prepared to run all of these research projects based on kind of the things that were mentioned at the beginning of the video. But when the world kind of ground to a halt, we obviously had to change and adapt. So that's, you know, why I'm here today, is to kind of show you some of the things that our team did, how we provided value not only to our executive team, but internal and external stakeholders. And I hope that, you know, some of the things that I show you today, maybe you can go back and apply to your own business. So I'm going to start with just probably the understatement of the century. 2020 has been a wild ride. I think we all know it. Starting with, of course, the pandemic, such as the world has never seen before, right? Coronavirus. And then we had kind of this cultural upheaval in terms of social justice in a way that we haven't seen before. This modern era of citizens coming together, protesting in a very visible way, and also expecting or even demanding businesses to become involved as well. Murder hornets, that was a thing. Just thought that I would throw that in there because, you know, we can't underestimate how crazy and awful 2020 has been. Also, just so you all know this information, I found out that they have a slaughter phase. So I thought that you guys should know. Apparently, we're going to be entering into that soon. You know, but the joking aside, apart from all of these changes and new things that have happened in 2020, some things have remained the same. Celebrities are refusing to give their children normal names. As you can see by Elon Musk here, I'm not even going to try. I heard through the grapevine that apparently it's pronounced Alex, but anyway. And outside of that too, NASCAR has continued racing. That has been a constant throughout this entire year. So what did we have to do in the face, as a research team, in the face of all this incredible change? We had to pivot. So like I said, we had, you know, really our work cut out for us, a very detailed and oriented plan for the type of research that we were going to conduct this year. How are we going to provide value to, like I said, our external and internal stakeholders, as well as our executive team. And that all just completely got blown away. So the first thing we did was we took a step back and we thought about who needs support from the research team. Well, number one, the business does. With all of our revenue streams halted, you know, we're not racing at the tracks, fans aren't in the stands, we're not broadcasting any sports. How can we help support the business? Well, really the only thing we could do is start running scenarios. All we could do is provide directional input for our executive team so that they're prepared for whatever 2020 throws at us next. Then the next group of people we had to provide support for, our fans. Their world is upside down, just like ours. But one thing that we had to think about is that in their world, sports and entertainment, that's a luxury. You know, that's kind of where they go for an escape from their everyday lives. And in 2020, with coronavirus, the pandemic, you know, are they looking to hear more from us? Or do they want us to back away and let them process? And if we do back away, how can we still kind of stay top of mind So that way they don't go X amount of, weeks without NASCAR and then decide that they just don't need us anymore. And then lastly, our sponsors. So many professional sports, have sponsors, but NASCAR is unique. Sponsors are one of the main pillars of our sports. Not only that, but the fans love and expect and want to support our sponsors. So how do we keep those sponsors invested with us at a time where they're probably paring down themselves, where they don't know what's happening? They're probably slashing budgets. So how do we convince them that NASCAR is still a worthwhile investment, even though we're not on the track right now? So I'm going to share with you guys a very real slide. This was one of our directional slides that we had created in 2019 that had our business plan that we submitted for executives for the type of research that we were planning on executing. And as you can see by that little glowing green addition at the top of the screen, we just had to completely scrap everything and resubmit our plan. So basically, again, we just simplified as much as we could. What are the KPIs that we need to focus on, that we can still help measure and project? And those things are interest, okay, understanding the sentiment and fan interest opportunities in the pandemic. Obviously before it was more about maintaining and growing, but now we're really, really honing in on maintaining. And then kind of secondarily, if there's any opportunities for people bored at home in quarantine, is there a chance that we can reach them? Attendance, NASCAR halted their races, but we knew that wasn't going to be forever. So with the scale of event that NASCAR puts on, we immediately had to start researching and planning for when we go back to sports, what is that going to look like? What are consumers expecting? How much do they want to pay? What's going to make them feel comfortable? And obviously, of course, how are we going to keep everyone safe? Engagement. When we don't have an on-track product, how are we making sure that our fans don't forget about us? And lastly, partner value. Of course, we couldn't do what we do without sponsors. So how do we make sure that we're still a good investment for them? How can we support them? And how can we make sure that, not only is NASCAR top of mind, but all of our premier partners being top of mind for fans as well? Then we came up with our kind of main focus areas. The first one obviously being understanding the pandemic. And what we really did is we leaned on third-party research providers to help us kind of figure out, we're lucky enough at NASCAR to have a pretty built out research team internally, but there was no way we were going to be able to conduct, overall research that was going to answer all of our executives' questions. So it turned to us to really look and see what was out there and gather that in a concise, digestible way for our executives so that they were making informed decisions. Consumption and engagement. We had to not only monitor what our fans were doing and how they were interacting with the sport, but also plan to grow that and to make sure that, everyone didn't just fall off because, again, we don't have anything on track. Awareness and interest. We needed to understand how fans are coming back to sports. We need to know, again, like I said, that kind of escapism luxury aspect. Is it something that they're craving now because they don't have access to it? Or is it something that's so far from their mind because they have such heavier matters going on? We needed to identify where that line was and walk it very carefully. And then lastly, partner valuation and relationship insights. Of course, I can't say it enough. We need our partners and we needed to make sure that we were still being valuable and productive for them. So really quick, this is just the timeline of some of the events that happened, from a research perspective this year. So March 13th, that was the day that all NASCAR staff got sent home. I remember I was actually off that day and I had to come into the office to come get my stuff because I didn't know when we were going back. We also had our first race postponed. And our research team normally conducts a post-race survey after every single event. And so there was already kind of immediate impacts on our cadence and what we were expected to provide to our stakeholders. March 22nd is when we had our very first eNASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational Series. Now this is huge. Like you guys saw in kind of the sizzle video at the beginning, NASCAR has already been working on an esports platform for several years now, but only recently have they really started investing a lot of time, a lot of money, and it's starting to get visibility. We decided as a company that, if we can't be on track and provide that entertainment for fans, well, why don't we go ahead and broadcast our esports product? It's something that we have. We can fill that airtime. We can fulfill our contracts with our broadcast partners. We can still get our premier sponsorship partners, FaceTime with the fans if we provide that. We had no idea how it was going to go, but we knew it was a small thing that we could do to at least try. May 17th, NASCAR returns at Darlington Raceway. This was huge. We were we were the first sport to return in the pandemic. Now, we didn't return with fans for Darlington, but we did get there relatively quickly. And then June 10th, NASCAR banning the Confederate flag. This was huge. Again, with all of the with all of the events that happened throughout the country, this summer, NASCAR really felt as if it needed to do more and it needed to take a stronger stance. And that's something historically that the company had never done. But, with research and insights guiding the ship, we finally took that step and it was amazing. So I'm going to show you again, another video. I promise this whole thing isn't videos, but really quickly, I'm going to show you some of the iRacing. This is what ended up getting broadcast. So what you'll see is, we won't watch the whole video, but it's going to talk a little bit about our iRacing eNASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational Series. And what it was it already took the established athletes in our eNASCAR program, those that were racing virtually. And then we added in our professional drivers that normally race on the track. Since they're not doing anything during the quarantine, we had them also come in and race along these pro eNASCAR drivers. And so this was something that we had never done before, but was really exciting because it kind of married those two audiences. There's a huge audience for sim racing and esports and video games in general. There's a huge audience for NASCAR, but traditionally there wasn't too much of an overlap there. And so this was a really cool initiative that we did, the first of its kind.
Hey everyone, I'm currently walking back to my apartment with some pancakes. A little different race day today, but excited for the iRacing event. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Really excited to go iRacing here today at Homestead.
A network television first. A NASCAR All-Star race from the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway, delivered by iRacing. I'm Mike Joy. He's Hall of Famer Jeff Gordon. We're practicing social distancing. 35 of NASCAR's top drivers for 100 laps. And out of retirement, Dale Jr. and Bobby Labonte.
Could we call this a comeback for you, maybe? You haven't raced a cup car in a while. It's sort of a comeback, I guess.
Got the poll. The iRacing Pro Series. Tune in.
This is my e-racing, iRacing, everything racing debut online. I can't believe the amount of attention and the anxiety that everybody's giving this. We've all got a lot of laps, so there's no excuses at this point.
Looking forward to getting going here.
Crew chief of the day for the one and only Chase Elliott. What do you think your odds are today?
Poor, very poor, but I'm going to try my best.
I can promise you from trying to get some experience on this thing all hours of the night, I think my wife is about to kill me.
I love you. Good luck. Thank you. We'll have fun today. Good luck.
Thank you.
Mwah.
Drivers, start your engines! Crank them up, Hank, crank them up. All right, hold on.
This is something.
All right, ready for the green flag. We're racing in Homestead. Garrett Smithley on the break from William Byron.
All right, come back down. We're getting better.
All right. And I'll pause it right there. If you guys would like to watch the rest of it on your own time, it's available on YouTube, eNASCAR Pro Invitational iRacing Series Social Mini Doc. It's about 7 minutes long. But basically, the iRacing program is something that's been around for a long time. It's an incredibly sophisticated and refined product. Basically, it is simulation racing. You need equipment to do it. You need the chair and the wheel and the pedals and usually multiple screens. And then you purchase a subscription through iRacing. And the iRacing program is phenomenal because what they do is they go out to these tracks and they scan them so that every bump, crack, and crevice is represented in the virtual race. The cool thing about iRacing, there's lots of cool things, but one of the cool things is that it's not just a NASCAR thing, it's for all racing. So if you are a big IndyCar fan and you always wanted to know what it would be like for some reason to race an IndyCar on, at Daytona Motor Speedway, you can do that. You could take a NASCAR Cup race and race it on a Formula One circuit. And then of course you can race a NASCAR Cup car on a NASCAR Cup track. So a lot of race teams actually use iRacing simulation rigs as practice for real races. If it's a track that the driver's never been to before, or maybe they didn't get enough practice at, they will oftentimes use iRacing to get some extra practice laps in. Like I said, but it's also available for just folks who want to sim race. And so there's a very large community of people who enjoy sim racing. And so eNASCAR is our esports program where we actually work with our teams, our race teams, and they draft these eNASCAR athletes to race for the actual teams virtually. So it was super cool. We already kind of had this product built out. We didn't have anything to broadcast, so we thought, why not push it all together and really just kind of see what happens. So like I said, iRacing is an extremely sophisticated and refined product. So what were our results? Not so much sophisticated, not so much refined. However, very well received. So just a couple highlights from this year's first kind of virtual season that was on broadcast. One of our top drivers, Denny Hamlin, his 7-year-old daughter accidentally turned off his rig mid-race, costing him the win. Matt DiBenedetto, one of our most charismatic drivers, decided to race the entire race in a giraffe onesie and consequently overheated. And then lastly, Alex Bowman, again, one of our top series drivers, felt the call of nature during the race, had to get up and do what he had to do, came back and his dogs were all over the rig. So honestly, it was just a fun social experiment for all of us. Not only broadcasting it, but I think fans really appreciated getting the chance to see what the drivers were doing during quarantine as well, showing that everyone is struggling, but that we're doing our best to make it work. And I think what was great too is that with all of the research that we had already done on iRacing, we knew how to talk about it to fans. We knew that this wasn't a replacement for racing, and we made sure it was very clear in our broadcast and all of our social posts that this is not a substitute. We understand that it's different. We understand that sometimes there's a glitch and it might look like a race car is flipping in the air repeatedly 9 or 10 times before stopping and landing on all 4 tires and continuing to drive. We know that doesn't happen in real races. We know that occasionally there's going to be glitches, but let's just enjoy this at face value for what it is. It is all of our drivers doing their best and having a great time. So like I said, this was incredibly well received. It was the highest rated esports TV program of all time. And you can see we had multiple races at multiple tracks and all of them did wonderfully. We reached 5.4 million unique viewers. We were #1 in programming each week. You have to remember that during this time, all sports were stopped. We were the only ones that had anything. So really to be able to just kind of roll with what we already had was huge for NASCAR. We got so much attention, not only from fans, but from media outlets as well, not even just sports, but more traditional media outlets as well. We're picking up on stories just because it was so unique and there was nothing else like it. 1 million new viewers, and we also got younger viewers. So sometimes NASCAR's audience can tend to be a little bit older than the average TV viewer. And what we were seeing was that since this is something that's brand new, hasn't been done before, and it's esports, we actually saw our broadcast viewership trending a little bit younger than what we're used to seeing. They were also staying engaged for longer. And again, it just established us as the clear esports leader. No one else was doing this. And we kind of really set the bar for how it should be done. So just some quick numbers for you guys. And this is just an example of our Richmond event. For television, we had 971,000 viewers turned in per minute. Digital, we had 1.2 million page views. I think this was really helped out by the fact that, of course, there's recaps and kind of race highlights, but also the silly stuff, the funny stuff, the real life stuff of, you know, Denny Hamlin's daughter turning off his rig. You know, that's something that is funny and endearing and people like to see. And then so many engagements on social media as well. And what was unique about it was we were not only getting, you know, tweets and engagements from fans, but our drivers, while they were driving, were also, you know, tweeting about their setups or bathroom breaks or like whatever else it was. You know, Matt DiBenedetto and his onesie, they were also tweeting while racing, which is a completely different, you know, facet to racing that we don't get when they're actually in a physical car zooming around a racetrack. And then here's some research that we did on our NASCAR Fan Council. This is our kind of proprietary research panel that we use. It's made up of, currently I think we are at over 11,000 avid fans who agree to give feedback to us out of the goodness of their own hearts. They are not incentivized. They like to answer surveys every single week about the track in terms of the on-track product, how the racing is, whether or not it's exciting or boring, memorable or forgettable. But also we do other types of research as well, such as creative testing for our ad spots, maybe sometimes usability work for our, you know, NASCAR Fantasy Live product, things like that. And so we, of course, asked our NASCAR Fan Council, hey, what did you guys think of this Esports Pro Invitational? 93% of them were aware of it, which is great because, you know, I think one of the biggest things we were concerned about was that everyone was just going to think that NASCAR is off air. So we were going to kind of broadcast this just into the ether and not have any eyes or ears. But thankfully, you know, people were really aware of it. And 3 out of 5 avid fans watched. You know, again, we had to be so careful of not marketing this as a substitution. You know, our avid fans are so passionate and, you know, NASCAR is core to who they are. And they would get really offended if they thought that that's how we were thinking of it in terms of like, oh, the fans will like this, racing is racing, you know, something's better than nothing. Like, no, we could not talk about it as if it was a substitution. We had to, you know, consciously, repeatedly say like, hey, we all want to go back to racing, but here's this really cool thing that you might like in the meantime. Favorability, 8 out of 10 either loved or liked it, which is wonderful. And there was also pretty high intent to watch it again, which is great. We were also worried that it would be kind of a one-time thing of, you know, oh, I've seen them race virtually once. It's not anything like the real thing. I don't need to tune in again. But we were, you know, very thankful that as we continued, you know, fans kept tuning in. And so it really kind of held us over until we were able to, it really kind of held us over until we were able to get back to track, which was our ultimate goal. So while e-racing or esports and iRacing were on broadcast television, what was the research team tasked with doing? Understanding everything else, which was a lot, but we knew it was coming, and we knew that it was great that we kind of had this placeholder, but the ultimate goal, like I said, is getting not only the drivers back to the track, but the fans back to the track. So in order to figure out what we were doing, we had to kind of answer some essential questions. The first question, of course, is time frame. How long is this going to take? You know, where are we projecting that we're going to be able to go back to the race? Where are fans' heads at? Are they going to think that it's irresponsible of us if we return to racing? Are they interested in returning? Are they excited? Are we top of mind for them? Time. How are fans spending their time? If they're not dedicating, you know, our fans were lucky enough, they appointment view our races pretty much every weekend. So now they have all these extra hours in a week. How are they spending that time? Are they watching more TV or less TV? Are they walking around outside and doing gardening, or are they doubling down on Netflix and Hulu subscriptions? We had to figure out where they were. Emotionally as well. So we had to make sure that we were striking the right balance between being grave about the current situation. Obviously, it's such a heavy subject matter, and we couldn't just act like everything was sunshine and rainbows and us going back to racing. But also, we do know, like I said before, we are kind of that escapism route for you know, their everyday stresses. So how do we make sure that we are being authentic and sincere while walking that line? And then lastly, money. We know a lot of our fans got laid off during this pandemic. We also knew that, you know, maybe our fans aren't laid off right now, but maybe they're pinching pennies in anticipation of it. The market was going crazy. No one knew how long it was going to last. So we also didn't know, you know, how much money our fans had to spend. Again, like I said, sports is, you know, for better or for worse, it's a luxury. It's not a necessity, and it's something that, you know, our fans could really drop if they were having a hard time. And so we were really hoping to make sure that wherever possible, fans were still including us, you know, just in their normal lives. So one of the things that we did to help support our you know, executive team during this time, especially to answer that first question, is we created a calendar. And you guys might be thinking like, Brie, this isn't research. It's not, but it's something that the research team could do to help navigate the ship, to help provide direction and support. So what we did is we spent hours scouring the internet, finding rumors and posts from other leagues, trying to figure out where their heads were at. When are they going to return to sports? And what we found out was that actually NASCAR was poised to return back sooner than anyone else. So what we did was we created a super simple, easy visual calendar for our leadership team. They could click on any of the events that were listed in the calendar and be linked back to whatever the original article or blog post or whatever was, but they could see at a glance kind of where we were competing for viewers. And you might notice here that, well, you know, Brie, I thought you said that NASCAR was first back, and I see UFC. Well, actually UFC got canceled. So we truly were, which was wonderful. And also we knew that in terms of all the other sports, we were the best suited for returning first. You know, obviously all of our venues are outdoor, they're open air. There's race teams, but it's more of an individual sport. Obviously our drivers are wearing full fire suits with gloves and, you know, full head helmets, and they're each in their individual cars. So we are really, really set up well to make sure that we can have a product that is completely safe and social distanced and complying with, you know, all of the rules and regulations. So once we returned to sports, we actually returned on the 17th with Darlington. We didn't have any fans. And as you can see, there wasn't really any competition. You can also look and see that there are races on Wednesday. That was something new that NASCAR decided to do. We wanted to make sure, because of our partners are so important to us, we wanted to make sure that we got our full season in. So instead of skipping or cutting some races, we decided that we were gonna condense our schedule and run double headers. And again, this is something that we conducted research on with our fans to ask if they would be interested. We had historic research that suggested that fans would be interested in weekday evening races. And then we were able to ask again and find out that during the pandemic, they were even more interested in this type of thing. And it was great because we were able to make that decision and pitch it to our broadcast partners with confidence of, if we put this product online or on air, we will get eyeballs. It will happen. So this is kind of like I said, the schedule for May. You can see how uncluttered it was and how little kind of competition we had. And then here's June. You can start to see it now. Still, NASCAR is the most frequent, really kind of the only other major competitor that we have at this point in time was golf. Again, because it was much easier for them to social distance and return without fans. And then here's just the last month that I included in the deck just for you guys to see. You can see kind of all of the clutter that is now on this calendar. And this is where we truly had to start fighting for views in terms of other sports opening days, everyone else making up events and things like that. So we actually, by starting early, we're able to really reach not only our core audience, but new people who maybe hadn't engaged with NASCAR before, but were starved for sports. They were able to turn on the TV and watch a live NASCAR race because that's, you know, the only live sporting event that's on television. And so it was so important, and we got so much out of it by being the first kind of back to racing, or, you know, back to sporting events. Something else we did, and I can't state this enough, is we really leaned on third-party research providers. You know, even though we have the fan council to conduct research on, we needed to be sensitive. We couldn't be pinging them every other day with different questions about, hey, when are you going to spend money on us again? Hey, when do you think you're going to go on vacation again? Hey, are you just sitting around watching TV now? Like, those are questions that we can't ask our fans, and it would be tactless to do so. So what we did, and again, probably one of the easiest but also most valuable services that we provided to our executive team, was that we found and condensed all of the information that was already online into a quick, digestible weekly report for our executive team of, this is what we know about coronavirus this week, you know? And so it was incredibly helpful, because I think sometimes we take it for granted as researchers that we're able to look at an article and easily make the call on whether or not it's something that we'd feel comfortable citing. You know, we can look and see, oh, you know, that sample size is way too small, or pull up the footnote and be like, wow, that was a really biased way for them to ask that question. Of course they got those results. And so rather than kind of leaving it up to the executive team to kind of sift through all that noise and clutter, we went ahead and did it for them. And it was incredibly valuable. Even though we weren't able to conduct our own research at that time, we were still providing them with fresh, relevant insights. So again, this is something I highly recommend you guys to not take for granted. If you ever feel like, oh, we don't have the time or the budget to do all of this kind of exorbitant custom research, it doesn't have to be that. Even just going through what's already available is incredibly helpful. And also, even in the long run, in terms of getting names and faces in front of the executive team, if you do want to pitch maybe more intensive research down the road, they could say, oh yes, I remember that company. I remember, you know, seeing their logo in those insights decks that you guys provided. So here really quickly, you can just see a quick grab of the type of insight that we reported. Again, it's not something that we did ourselves, but something that we were able to provide as value for our executive team. And you can see how much have you missed each of the following as a result of lifestyle disruptions? Well, it's great because not only is sports in there, everything else is in there. So it gives our executive team a lot more context than if we had just run a sports-centric, actually NASCAR-centric survey on the fan council. This is much more Gen Pop, broader, more applicable. Here's another slide. Again, it's a little bit ugly because we just grabbed everyone's information as it was. You know, obviously it's presented in PDF format, so we can't really change it to look all beautiful and on our color schemes. But again, super helpful. This was kind of after the initial, the first initial wave of fear died down and people were starting to feel optimistic again. Now, obviously, since this time, there's been several different kind of waves of optimism and fear that have happened, but we were able to kind of show over time how our consumers were feeling and how the general public was feeling in terms of timing, when it would be right to start going back to track and when we could even begin to think about inviting fans and having some sort of like limited experience for fans at track. And then here too, this is again, research that was more towards the end of, you know, right before we got fans back in the stands. And you can see we have a little graph over on the side by performance research. And then on the right, we have, we're finally able to do the research on our fan council panel. It finally made sense. We were able to do it. And so we were able to kind of provide fan council results alongside Gen Pop results from other research companies to really provide additional context. And what we found was that NASCAR fans were more willing to go back to races and were more eager to return to kind of normal life than regular, than just Gen Pop, which is very encouraging for us. And kind of the last topic that I wanted to talk about is social justice. This is, you know, a topic that has rocked every corner of every industry this year. And I think it was a truly just historic moment for NASCAR in terms of us actually, you know, taking a public stance. Again, that's not something that in the past, you know, companies were expected to do. And I think especially NASCAR, even less so, just given its probably very Southern, very conservative roots, to be frank. And so for NASCAR to come out as a, you know, leader in this movement was not only huge and wonderful, but also terrifying. And it never would have happened if we didn't have research and insights to kind of support everything. And so as some of you guys might be aware, we have a African-American driver in the top series. There's only one. His name is Bubba Wallace. And he races Cup Series. At this time, he raced the number 43 car for Richard Petty Motorsports, which is a pretty iconic car, very strong link to NASCAR history and heritage. And, you know, Bubba has had never previously really been an advocate for social justice. He was really just focused on his career, just really grinding, trying to make his way to the top. And, you know, the events of the summer really just struck him differently. And he decided that he was going to advocate. And basically what happened was he came under so much fire. He got so much pushback. Like I said, again, NASCAR historically has been, you know, a little bit more conservative. So to all of a sudden have a driver at the top level, you know, advocating for social change was huge. And basically NASCAR took a look at the situation. We knew what was right. They came to the research and analytics department and said, all right, we're going to do this. What's the damage going to be? They already knew that they were going to do it, but they needed to understand what was going to happen. And so basically, to the best of our abilities, we kind of projected what was going to happen, but also we were able to say, like, you know, there might be some of our fans that we lose. There are going to be people that don't, you know, love this, but it is going to be better for the sport in the long run. And again, like I said, NASCAR already knew it was the right thing to do. They were going to do it no matter what the research team had to say, but we were at least able to provide that kind of extra reassurance to help them kind of weather the storm that they knew was going to happen. And so sure enough, Bubba had been doing some interviews and he made a public call for NASCAR to ban the Confederate flag. And then 2 days later, NASCAR made it official and they announced that they would be banning the Confederate flag at all events from here on out. So as soon as that happened, again, we're kicking it into high gear and doing some more research. So this again was more Gen Pop, so not on the fan council, not, you know, anything else like that. And so what we found was, you know, over half of the general population had a negative association with the flag. Half of them felt uncomfortable and embarrassed by it. 76% of the general population was aware that NASCAR made the decision to prohibit the flag. I mean, that's huge. And 62% were in support of it, and 64% felt good about NASCAR due to the decision. And again, these numbers aren't astronomically high, but it's something that we needed to do. We knew that the majority of people would agree with us because, again, it is the right thing to do. But also, we knew it would help combat some of the more negative stereotypes associated with NASCAR, because we know we're not that company, but new fans might, you know, or potential fans might turn away from us just because of previous conceptions about our sport. So to be able to have these numbers was incredibly positive and reassuring. So here's kind of some of the global reaction that NASCAR experienced. And this slide is courtesy of our social analytics team, who really just, again, I probably didn't see them for a couple of weeks. They just had their heads down and were so busy, you know, tracking everything that was happening to NASCAR. But basically, we had 94,000 social mentions, 291 million impressions, over 80,000 unique authors, so many retweets. And what was amazing is we're not only getting kind of retweets and earned media from folks in the auto racing world, we, you know, it also started expanding into other sports. And then it went even further than that into like general public. Like there's a great example is Reese Witherspoon tweeting about NASCAR. You know, that's not something at the beginning of 2020 that we would expect. And so it was truly phenomenal, and it fostered a lot of conversations about NASCAR. It really elevated Bubba Wallace's career in terms of his visibility. I think a piece was just published that he's one of the most recognized drivers in NASCAR, if not the most recognized driver in NASCAR currently. And what we saw too was a lot of other Black athletes in different leagues reached out to Bubba to not only offer their support, but to also ask him questions about NASCAR. And we kind of saw this really cool phenomena of these other athletes that aren't, you know, that aren't playing their sport right now, live tweeting during our events, asking the NASCAR fan base questions so that they could better understand the sport, and having our, you know, older avid fans tweet back at them and respond and help explain the format and kind of bring them into the fold. And so it was truly phenomenal. And like I said, I mean, anytime a company takes a stance like that, it's pretty scary. You know, I think it was especially scary for NASCAR, just given their roots, but it was the right thing to do, and so worth it, and just such positive response. And then kind of lastly, the most recent news that you guys might have heard about is Bubba Wallace, like I mentioned, for 2020, he's driving the 43 with Richard Petty Motorsports, actually announced that he is switching cars. And so it was announced that Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin bought a charter to race a car in the 2021 season as co-owners, and they're going to have Bubba Wallace be the driver. So absolutely phenomenal, marrying multiple sports fandoms together, introducing a whole new set of people to, you know, the world of NASCAR. And then also wasn't announced at the time of this slide being created, but they just recently announced that not only will Bubba Wallace be driving for Michael Jordan, but the car number is actually, of course, going to be 23. So just so cool all around, incredibly exciting, a really wonderful example of, you know, kind of the pain of social reckoning being taken and turned into something wonderful and awesome and progressive for our sport. So I know that, you know, even though 2020 isn't over yet, 2021, we already have our work cut out for us, and we are so excited to see how NASCAR, you know, continues to grow and tackle whatever situations are thrown at us. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Erica and maybe see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Brie. That was so interesting. It's really, I mean, obviously all companies are dealing with so many issues amid the pandemic, but really interesting to see this breakdown of how NASCAR has like pivoted and really focused their business on becoming better during this time. So that's great. We don't have any questions. Anyone has any last minute ones? Pop them in. It's been a quiet question day. I think everyone's feeling the Friday mood. No. All right. Oh, nice, great presentation from Nancy. Sweet.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, we will give you. Oh wait. Oh, one more question. You mentioned social listening. What types of tools do you utilize overall for your research?
That's a great question. Hopefully I don't get myself into too much trouble because I'm not on the social analytics team. I believe that our main partners are Meltwater and Zoom right now. And we're actually working to make sure that our social listening tools are kind of consistent across all of our different departments. So before, when I first got to NASCAR, there was you know, kind of our digital team and our social team, and everyone was kind of using their own tools. And so now that's kind of been one of the big efforts that was kind of in place before 2021 got turned upside down, was making sure that we were all kind of on the same page in terms of our social listening tools. But Zoom and Meltwater are the main ones that we use.
Gotcha. Any last minute questions? Going once. See if any come in. All right, I think we're safe. Thank you so much, Brie. That was a great presentation. Thanks so much for taking the time and joining us for the conference.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
And everyone else, we will have our last